A great show for you. Still
Yes,
two more big hours to go. Anthony Scaramucci coming later this hour. A lot to talk about as we head to 2020. Joe Biden out on the stump, slamming the president. Interesting, because there are a lot of Democrats doing that, but he was initially running as a different kind of Democrat, that he was going to unify the country.
To your point, he may have said that, but it's been the exact opposite of what he's done as candidate Biden, starting with the video about Charlottesville, then really taking it straight to the president. He went even further yesterday in South Carolina when he talked about, well, listen.
The single most important right you have as an American, the right to vote. The right to vote. And folks, last year, 24 states introduced or enacted at least 70 bills to curtail the right to vote. And guess what? Mostly directed at, quote, people of color. You see it. We got Jim Crow sneaking back in. No, I mean it. Why? Because you know, if everybody has an equal right to vote, guess what? They lose. They lose.
He's doing this in South Carolina, where the African-American vote is key in the Democratic primary.
The question for me when I listen to something like this is always, how are Democrats hearing that? It was interesting, Ed, you spoke to Teslin Figaro, former Bernie Sanders national staffer, and she talked about why Joe Biden needs to explain these comments, particularly in relation to his prior support of the crime bill. Take a listen.
For him to be talking about Jim Crow, and when he was the one that implemented the crime bill, which was worse than Jim Crow when it comes down to what it's done to my community, particularly my generation, with locking up more black men in prison than those who were enslaved in 1850. So he has a lot of explaining to do, and it's going to go a little bit deeper than just, the right to vote. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he's going to do to actually fix that plan.
Something Hillary Clinton had to deal with in 2016 because her husband, of course, had signed that crime bill into law. Joe Biden was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee who wrote it. He has explained that the context was violent crime was on the rise in America. Democrats were repeatedly tarred with the idea they weren't tough on crime, so they wanted to make that a tough crime bill. But her point is that some of the rhetoric around it, as well as the policy implications, were a lot of African Americans were locked up. Number one, but number two, they talked about, quote unquote, predators out on the streets. And they were mostly Joe Biden and Bill Clinton talking about young black men.
Yeah, but who's made criminal justice a big part of his administration? Oh, President Trump. African-American unemployment, historic lows. It's worth relitigating because it's exactly what they're doing. They want a race about race. They want to say that President Trump is racist.
He started with Charlottesville, as you said.
Is racist, that Joe Biden is going to be a healer and bring it together. But what he actually does with this rhetoric is further divide because it's so disingenuous.
Yeah.
What these voter laws are about. In Minnesota, I can walk to the polls and be like, I'm Joe Smith. And they'll be like, do you have any proof? Nope, I'm Joe Smith. Okay, go vote.
That's it. Here. I did it in New York.
I show my ID to get on an airplane, to do anything else, to buy a six-pack, and I don't have to show an ID to vote, and that makes me racist? Or maybe I want to get rid of voter lists where there's a bunch of dead people on the voter rolls. Maybe that's a good idea, too. Suddenly that's racist. It's all disingenuous. It's all because he wants to frame it in terms that help him in that primary race and make him look like he's tough on Trump. He's not all that good on the stump, folks. If you actually watch it, half the time he's reading,